Now, we know that Karima Brown was known for being a journalist, but she was an avid communist. She was an activist at heart. And, of course, it goes back to her days where she cut her teeth in politics in the UDF. Talk to us about Karima Brown, the activist, the communist at heart.
Thank you very much, Mpho, for this opportunity. Let me start by expressing my condolences and those of the SACP to the family of Karima as well as her colleagues in the media. For us as the SACP, this is a huge loss. It's a huge loss because Karima Brown was one of a kind, to be quite honest, you know. She was someone who grew up in the anti-apartheid democratic movement, very much communist in her commitments and so on, believes in the working class and the poor. And her journalism was unashamedly informed by that perspective. But at the same time, she never sacrificed her journalistic independence. She could be as robust when she was interviewing me like any other person that she would ordinarily would have very huge differences with. What for us also as the SACP, we will really continue to remember her for, is that she was a very analytical person. She would prepare very thoroughly whether she was writing something or she was to conduct an interview, such that you wouldn't even doubt as an interviewee as to what is it that she's actually looking for. But more than that, Mpho, you know, it's sad really to lose someone like Karima because it's a loss to progressive journalism, which in fact in South Africa has had a very small, unfortunately is not growing, you know. Was able to say, the fact that I broadly in agreement with you does not mean that I agree with you on everything that we are actually going to say. So it's going to create a very big and a huge void. She was also very critical of the capitalist ownership of the media, that it just did not have an influence on who owns which television station or which newspaper, but that it actually had impact on journalism itself, because capitalist newspapers or capitalist media is about making profits. So that is what all the time would guide it. And Karima was very conscious of that. We wish that some younger journalists could also just learn some lessons from that, even if you would disagree with her analysis. But she was so honest and frank in stating what her views are. And that's the kind of journalist that we are losing today, and we are saying goodbye. Of course, myself, just my experience with her, always when she wants to interview me, she would say, okay, let's discuss the context within which I want to interview you. Normally we would have serious disagreements and huge debates, particularly at critical points in time in many developments in our country, whether it was about President Zuma, whether it was about economic policies that were being pursued by government. You know, she would actually be very engaging, and it's someone who would be very clear what she wants. Of course, I used to joke with her and say, because she hated corruption and what was called brown envelope journalism. So I would tease her and say, well, I'm no longer going to call you now Ms. Brown, because I might as well continue and say Ms. Brown envelope. Says, yeah, I'm Karima Brown. And I used to joke with her and say, yes, you Ms. Yellow now, because I don't want to call you Brown, because that's closer to something that you do not like. She was a very principled person. Like her or do not like her, she was very straight, and you would know that what you saw is what you actually got. We need tons of that in journalism today, even more so, by the way, that journalism itself is under huge threat today, given the rise of social media, the rise of fake news. You really need very, very strong journalists who are actually not going to be easily swayed each way or that way because they are not able to do thorough research, which is another thing I really, and as the party, valued about Karima. She did her research. which is very good, because there is nothing as irritating for some of us who are in the political space that you can see the person who is interviewing you has not even bothered to actually prepare and get adequate background of what we are going to be asked about. For Karima, I mean, the way she would also prepare, for instance, for her television shows, you know, whether she was still at CNBC or later at ENCA, you could see that you had come to a person who knows what she's talking about. And it made some of us to feel comfortable to be interviewed by her, even on a matter that we would strongly disagree about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blade Nzimande, SACP General Secretary, there, giving us his recollection of the late veteran journalist Karima Brown. Now, former business